In last episode, I mentioned I had a friend who's not really good at exams, but he does have a brain on business. And one thing he did, he was actually selling newspaper to the schoolmates during the school Olympics. So that's a sport event for the entire school, and every students are required to attend, but we were not allowed to bring any devices. So that was so boring, and nobody is really a big fan of the sports. And when he was like selling newspaper, and was like, I want to buy one, I want to buy one because it's so boring. I need to find something to do, and so he made a small amount of money because he didn't really sell that really expensive price. Um, but later on, people get so mad on him because they found out he was actually selling the newspaper from last year. So that's not a newspaper, that's like old paper. But people just found it that's a really funny thing and didn't really get like revenge from him or anything. And also the parents are like, oh, that guy is actually a funny guy. And people don't really hate him, but just because, his overall grade is not really high, and people, and especially parents, don't really want their kid to play with him, even though he's actually a really funny person. And for the school Olympics, we actually have that every year except for grade 9, because, we have our playground on the above a supermarket, so we didn't have enough space to do anything basically. But there actually is a playground. But because, we are on the top of the supermarket, the room is really limited. Our running track is actually 220 meters. So that's a really awkward length because your running track should be like either 200-meter or 400-meter, because that there's a thing called the sport exam, like a PE exam. So that's a provincial PE exam, and the PE exam is like a 200-meter. There's one of the project is like a 200-meter competition, and every time we want to run a 200-meter, we have to set two separate lines for a starting line and also the finish line. And I think a lot of people already know there's a thing in China called Gaokao, so that's an exam from high school for you to enter universities. And there's also another important exam. That exam is from the middle school for you to enter the high school. That's also important because a good high school is like ensuring you to get into a good university. But that's not a national wide. It's more like a provincial thing. So every province have their own right to decide which day and how it's gonna be for the exams. And PE exam is one of the subjects. We also have 7 other subjects I mentioned in last episode. And ooh, that was crazy because in grade 9, the teachers don't really want us to do any sports. So firstly, they don't want us to get injured, because injury, you have to recover, and that might cost you time, and you might gonna waste your time, so you don't have enough time to practice for the final exams. So we actually have like a basketball field, but it's like a prohibited. Like we are not allowed to play basket. And also in the PE exam, there's actually 3 options for the balls, like volleyball, basketball, and soccer ball. And except for a few guys who's like insisting to play soccer because they love soccer so much and they're pretty good on soccer. They're they're actually playing better than the Chinese national soccer team. I'm sorry, but the Chinese national soccer team sucks. Um, and anyways, so the teacher actually allowed them to do the soccer, but they said, "Oh, you gotta know the consequences because soccer is actually the hardest project in the 3 balls." They were like, "I will do that anyways." Ooh, but the rest of us, we were like forced to choose the volleyball because that's the easiest. We just have to hit the volleyball like, I think like 50 times in a limited time. It's like 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 1 minute. I forgot. But anyway, that was really easy. Actually, that was actually, very suitable for many of the students who doesn't do sport very often. Especially like many of the students, they don't do sports at all. It's more like they don't have a chance. If we had a chance, we really want to do some sports. Just like teenagers, it's always like a lot of energy to cast out. But anyways, basketball is really forbidden. And also I think that PE exam is actually crazy because in the most of the time, especially for grade 9, students are not allowed to do sports and we don't have time to do sports either. As I mentioned last time, our school set us free on 6:50 p.m., but that doesn't mean we can take a rest. After we go home, well, firstly, we don't really go home, we go to after school classes. Basically everyone in China, like every students, they have after school classes to take. I don't really know what's the point of it. If like there's a few students that take after school classes, that means the student probably didn't really study much during the actual classes. But if every students take after school classes, then what are the schools doing? The school are not teaching. That's why we need to go to after school classes. Or that means that competition is going to a wrong direction. The competition is like becoming negative. So everyone have to work harder. But if everyone work harder, that means that, no one is actually working harder. Because, if you rank everyone from top 1 to 1,600, there has to be someone to be the 1,600, right? Even if he's like a genius, right? For example, if we have like 1,599 Albert Einstein, and a guy who's really good at math but not as a genius, then that guy has to be 1,600. So it doesn't actually make any sense for me. But I don't make the rule. And one of the really bad consequences is that we don't get enough sleep. Because after the after school classes, we have to go home and do our homework. We have homework from our school and also after school classes. Oh my god. I remember during like grade 8 and grade 9, I never sleep before 11. And the school is actually promoting that. It's like, you shouldn't sleep before 11. I was 14, bro. Every 14 boys should sleep before 11. And that was like, that was not healthy at all. And because of lack of sleep, your heart is not going to be very, very strong. Your brain is not going to be very strong. You're going to lose memory because you don't sleep well. And one of my best friends in middle school, when we were doing practices for PE exam, yes, we still do practice for PE exam even, and he was like running for like a 100-meter dash. So you have to run as fast as you can. So he actually fainted away after he ran that. Like he was like running, he crossed the finish line and he started to like moving like, I don't know, like he was drunk. I thought he was like doing something funny. I was like, oh, that was so funny. I was like rushing to him. I said, yo, bro, you actually did something really funny. And I found out he was actually fainting away. I was like, oh my god. I was like calling the teacher, like, my friend is fainting away. Yeah, you shouldn't do such a intensive exercise if you don't get enough sleep. You need to eat something, you need to do the exercise, you need to do the sports gradually. You need to let your body to get used to that intensive sports. But clearly the people who make the rule don't give a shit about that, unfortunately. But the most of students still pass the PE exam. It's not really hard, especially we were like forced to practice for that. And we always have some like ways to to manipulate the rule, and we eventually will pass the exam. but after the PE exam, so the actual big exam is on June, and I think it's on July or June, I forgot. But anyways, the PE exam is on May. So after May, we were forbidden from doing any sports. Like we are not allowed to go to the playground. And then we actually don't have time to go to the playground because the school has a lot of homework, and also we have after school classes. So everyone during the class break just sitting there and doing the homework, except for there's a few students who like categorized as a bad students and they just gave up themselves. And there's another funny thing, because we have so much homework, we have to do our homework during the class, but our teacher don't want us to do that. I don't know what they were thinking. They know we have after school classes, they know we don't have enough sleep, but they still don't. The first day they give us a lot of homework, and also they don't give us enough time to do the homework, so we have to secretly do the homework during class. If you're in North America, you're gonna secretly doing something on class. You're probably gonna play on your cell phone, or I don't know, just secretly chatting with someone else, or just like secretly eating something, having snacks or something, or just don't secretly escape from the class. But in China, we secretly do our homework during the classes, and we are not allowed to do that. Um, but also, you have to be really skilled. So we usually doing our homework under the desk, and the teacher, when he's giving lecture, they were giving lectures. They're gonna walk around, and they're gonna try to figure out, who's not listening to the class. So we usually do the homework when the teacher's on the other side of the classroom, or he's on the he's writing something on the blackboard, and that's the time we're gonna do the homework. We have to do the homework at the same time and observe the teacher. So, but not everyone's lucky enough. I think everyone who's like doing the secret doing their homework got caught before, except for me. Yo, I actually never got caught. Um, but I don't really think that's something really should be proud of. That actually leave me a little bit trauma. It's like, if someone's like walking towards me, and when I'm like working, when I'm like really focusing on something, I'm gonna get scared. That's like probably one of the trauma left from me. Um, or someone's like suddenly talk to me. A lot of homework occupied our time to play, but when we actually had a time, we're gonna try our best to play. And so after the school, we usually just walk back home, and the way of our walking is actually walking really fast to save time, because the teachers were like, 1 minute. If you have 1 minute on working on your practices, you might gonna have 10 more marks. With 10 more marks, you might gonna surpass like 10,000 students. So we value every single minute, and that's why we walk really, really fast. I still have the habit though, until today. I walk really fast, but sometimes I remind myself, I'm no longer in middle school. I don't need to walk that fast. That kind of reminds me. There's a movie that describes the rich people who have a lot of time. They never run, but the poor people, they don't have time, so they have to run. Like the time is like the currency in that movie. It kind of reminds me like this. Yeah, but anyways, that's the story of today, and stay tuned. See you next time.